Welcome everyone to Growth Sessions, where we chat with agency leaders in retail media. I'm so honored today to be welcomed with our guest, Amy Lansey of Publicis Commerce practice. Amy, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like anytime there's some exciting news in holdco, media agency, and commerce, Publicis is at the front of that news, and you obviously lead that practice. So it's really great to have you. And one of the things that I find really interesting is when these large agencies, like someone like a Publicis, make the decision to invest in commerce. And it seemed like you came onto Publicis right at that time. I'd love to know, I think it was about 3 years ago when this practice started, what was the reason for the inception, and what intrigued you so much about joining at that time?
Sure. Yes, you're right. It was about September 3 years ago. And it was really a focus for the group in terms of building out a practice to solve for finding where consumers want to buy in the world of commerce. And leadership here at Publicis was prescient in terms of thinking about what we were already experiencing in markets like China and seeing the just disruption in terms of how consumers are behaving on marketplaces and how they're just harder to find as shopping becomes easier, but also more complex. So given the growth and the change that we'd seen in that market, wanted to formally launch this practice for the group to be through the lens of media first, to be able to really guide our clients in terms of what investment strategies they need, what types of experience they need to be making to be able to keep up with all of the consumers and how they want to buy. And so it was a big bet for the group early days, in my opinion, to build this out. And I was recruited in for that very reason. What was intriguing to me is that I have always grown up in this, why consumers buy things, retail shopper space. And I was finding that much more of the decisions I was making at the time in my previous role was around media and how media was becoming a critical factor in everything that you're investing in when you're trying to build modern commerce experiences. So the media component of this role was what really attracted me to it, because I felt like the future was going to be the magical mix of media, creative, as well as tech, as we're going to talk more about, to be able to really keep up with the changing consumer and grow our important client brands.
Got it. And you mentioned you saw what was going on in China. A lot of people see lots of things going on in China that are interesting. Some of that may not translate to what goes on the Western side of the world. What were key aspects about that you thought, hey, this is a bet that needs to be made, and some of these trends are, if not going to translate globally, but already are here in North America?
The first, in terms of the growth of marketplaces like Alibaba, for example, just completely taking over the way consumers engage with brands, as well as informing what they should buy. So these, mega ecosystems were really starting to take hold. So that, coupled with the growth of Amazon in our market, one would think that might be a place that we should be playing harder. And
that was a good bet. Amazon turned out to be pretty big.
Yeah. So that we should be thinking about this sort of the rise of the platforms, especially the marketplaces, and how they could potentially come between brands and consumers is first. Also, when you look at just the adoption to mobile in China, for example, has always been ahead of the West. So seeing how we could also think about that through the lens of experience. Of course, you bring in your social partners there as well, because that's such a big part of that market, and how we could bring that into the fold when it comes to being able to interact with consumers and choices that they're, what's driving them to make their purchase decisions. And then finally, interestingly, now fast forward COVID, and, one of the main things that was a huge driver of e-commerce penetration in general in China was SARS. That really drove, ship to home and all the things that have now, blown up in our market because of something like a pandemic. So now that's even become much faster than when we started doing this, which was, of course, pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm. And so Amy joins Publicis to lead the commerce practice. What are those next few hires that you're making as you start to identify these strategic areas of focus of where commerce wants to be competitive in the agency landscape?
So when we think about building out commerce for the group, one of the key components in terms of hires is I really break it down into people, process, and product, and how we are delivering against those things. So talent is obviously the people part. It's critical. And there are not enough practitioners in this space that have grown up in this idea of what motivates consumers to buy and how you make that connection outside of just brand building, if you think about it. So people is a huge part of it. So to me, it's not a single hire. It is a massive training and guidance in terms of how we have our new talent that is understanding this from day one, that are coming in so they understand the role of Amazon and Instacart and all the different players in our market and the nuances, of course, of each of those experiences in terms of how you work inside of the platform itself and what are the different levers you can pull. Because as you know, each of those, whether it's Kroger, Instacart, Amazon, GoPuff, you name it, they all have different levers for brand building and to drive commerce outcomes. And so it's important that our talent understands that from day one. So that's one. The second is in terms of, as we think about product, we need to have a product mindset. We can't keep up with the changing consumer, nor can we marry SKU at the SKU level, each consumer with what we think is the best thing for them to buy without incredible product. So we are very focused on building products as well as making sure our talent understands the importance of product and the mix with product and marketing services. And then process. How are we transforming in terms of process to assure that commerce is not a specialty, which is sometimes where it can sit, versus it's part of the regular course of business. It's an important component in terms of the KPIs that we're developing. Our job is to drive our brand's growth and more sales. And how is that process in place from, how we build agency teams and also how we interact with our clients, because clients tend to be siloed as well. So process is really important. So we have a more holistic point of view around driving one more sale of one more product with one more consumer.
Lovely. And I want to go deeper into each one of those P's. So with people, I imagine that most of the people that you brought onto the commerce practice have media first backgrounds. So what was part of that learning of transitioning someone from media first to commerce first?
So we have brought on people that have media first, but with a finer point on performance first. Because someone that's come from a performance background, maybe not a commerce background, but has been living and understanding how to win in search, not necessarily retail search, but general search, that's critical. So when we say media, it's performance first. And then I'll also add that we have brought talent that understands the shopper/commerce experience part of the world. That's really important in terms of designing ways to engage consumers always and wherever they are in the proverbial consumer journey, I think is another point that's different. That's a great complement to a media practitioner, just as the counterbalance of those two. Media is such an interesting, critical space to think about your investment strategy and essentially how you are designing around almost beating these ecosystems in terms of the algorithm. And media is a great way to do that because you use products, better targeting, better data to figure out how you are spending dollars against the right consumer, but also maximizing the way that they are experiencing the brand in each of the different places. And as you know, it's very different how you can surround a consumer on Amazon versus Instacart versus Kroger because they all have different opportunities. And that is much more of a media investment strategy versus creating a piece of content, which is when you have someone that has more of that creative experience background. You need the marriage of both to be able to really deliver what I call modern commerce experiences out into the world.
So we have this team now of a bunch of folks that are focused on commerce. How do you think about servicing a brand, and what does a brand team look like? Like, what are the various different roles that each brand within the Publicis Commerce portfolio, the people on Publicis side, like what are those touch points and who are those folks that would be touching the brand?
Sure. So when we are structuring teams to service our brands, we think about first how, of course, that brand is organized. So we tend to make sure that we are covering a couple different key stakeholders. There's usually an e-commerce lead or a digital commerce lead at that client. There also is a media lead that's highly influential in terms of unlocking those investment dollars. And then, of course, there's someone on the brand team or a CMO that's really invested in understanding how these sales oriented, or could be defined as sales oriented, are really building brand. So that's important to understand the stakeholders on the client side. When we build the teams, it's a mixture of commerce first, exec sponsor. Our position is that in order to really grow in commerce, we need to be thinking about it in a holistic way, so not in a silo. So the first is that the exec sponsor, the business leadership, is definitely commerceized, which is the phrase that I use. So they understand the importance of this space. They understand the importance of Amazon. They understand all of the perhaps more new places and channels that consumers are engaging that they may not have been accustomed to in 5 years ago from an exec sponsor standpoint. Then we build in commerce strategy so that you have someone that is always on, focused on sales KPIs and how those are working against the broader plan. And then at the functional level, you absolutely have to have hands-on keys that understand the different platforms you're within. So, someone that understands Amazon search may not also be an expert on Walmart search, et cetera. So we need to make sure at the functional level, we have those partners and, that talent in place that also work with, and this is where it gets more interesting, that also work with the other function leads when we get to programmatic and some of the other areas in social where commerce is a critical component. And as these partners transform to have full funnel offering, you have to have both for it to work, which is why that commerce strategist is very important to assure that we are always thinking about commerce in these plans and executing against the KPIs in which the channels that we're running.
You mentioned two things in there that I want to touch on. So one, brand building seems to resonate across the things that you're mentioning, and also a full funnel strategy. When you traditionally bring people into these new marketplaces, and as an example, it usually begins with paid search, which is bottom of funnel, very performance and ROAS focused. When does the brand building discussion begin? When it's not just a paid search play on a given marketplace? Obviously, Amazon is the most mature, so maybe we can use that as an example. How does Publicis think of saying, hey, this is how you're building a brand across all of these advertising opportunities and all of these commerce opportunities?
So it's an interesting question. Usually they're not connected, but they should be connected. So when we first work on businesses, as if brilliant basics, if you're not maxing out search in a way that makes sense, any investment otherwise in some of these partners doesn't make sense, because consumers tell us everything we need to know about them based on their search terms, right? So that's job one. In order to, on the brand building side, it's convincing sometimes that brand owners need to be thinking and reshaping the way that they are allocating dollars to an Amazon, for example, because Amazon now has full funnel capabilities. So you can basically, where consumers spend a lot of time, so that you can go from, moving someone from discovery, seeing something through OTT, and bringing them all the way down to actually making a purchase within that platform. We like to talk about taking some of the briefs and reshaping the brief and coming back with a provocative approach to breaking Amazon through creative. That is a way to talk to a brand owner. That sounds really exciting. We're going to break Amazon with this brief, and here's what we're going to do. And so the creative is designed for that marketplace. You can also layer in the job to be done, which is a little bit of my, shopper background, which is like, the job to be done is to get, Adam to buy a cool new pair of sneakers for back to school. That's the job. So we're going to basically make this happen on Walmart. But because Walmart has all of these opportunities that are full funnel, we can do all of this that lands in the Walmart ecosystem. That is an interesting way to move into brand building, because me making that emotional connection with you during back to school, so you look cool when you go back to school, is important. And that's where brands, you need brand stories, but building the stories fit for that ecosystem or that total solution is how you're going to be able to move from brand all the way into conversion in one place. That's how we behave.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I want to buy that product. I'd love to know what breaking Amazon with creative means. That sounds like an amazing soundbite that my ears are piqued. Folks at Amazon advertising are like, yes, this sounds amazing. And I'd love to know what that means at Publicis.
What it means is we get the right team in place to move it just away from, I want to win on sponsored products, and think about interesting solutions that take advantage of the way consumers behave on Amazon. So one of the things we did is in partnership with one of our CPG brands, which was around snack and stream. So we know that consumers are watching content on Amazon, and we're able to create creative that says, don't you love this? Stream more and have more of said snack. But it's an experience that came to life throughout all the creative aspects you can buy on Amazon. So it's about thinking about the whole job versus sometimes the things that come into us tend to be very oriented from the brand, like the client perspective. So you have an Amazon salesperson that says, I want to sell more packaged goods. So I want to understand what I do. And so you end up coming up with, you need to spend more in search, or you need to do these very, lower funnel things. And then you have brand owners that say, I need a new campaign to launch a product. The answer is somewhere in between, because if it doesn't feel organic to consumers, I look at everything through the lens of my 16-year-old, she will basically say, this doesn't make any sense. But done well within the world of Amazon or the world of Snapchat or the world of TikTok, then all of a sudden, you can easily move someone from, I saw this, to I'm going to add it to my list, because it's that easy.
Or she asked mom to just buy it for her.
Or she says, Mom, TikTok told me to buy this. And then she says, I have to buy it. Yeah.
Let's talk about process. What's the process component?
So process to me is so important. I was trained by the founder that I originally worked with that process also highlights dysfunction. So I'm a big fan of process, because that's when you can see where you have problems in your process. So when we think about process, and this is, big in terms of how we're bringing commerce into the early on conversation versus something that's sitting in a specialty space or sitting in the lower, in lower funnel, if you will, is how do we orient around developing plans the first time that are inclusive of commerce? How is everything shoppable? How are those things coming to life from a process standpoint? So when we think about the people on the team, which was the other part of the conversation, we need to make sure that from a leadership perspective, this is something that's part of the mix. It's not something that is separate from a process standpoint. So for example, what are we thinking about in terms of sources of growth? Where are we investing to, not just because we did it last year, but in terms of where we want our business to grow? That's an important part of process, different than building brand engagement, right? Different than vanity metrics. Important to build brand building, but you need to be thinking about sources of growth as well. And then building that into the process. So the plans we ultimately make or the content we make take all of those things into account versus it not being part of the plan and being disconnected. And so that process is on our side so that we think about from, campaign planning down, as well as how we are helping our clients think more holistically from a process standpoint. COVID was really interesting in terms of, everyone talks about how e-commerce grew 10 years and 5 months or whatever the right number is now. What was already happening before COVID is that most organizations were wildly disconnected and siloed already. And now that is much worse because they haven't updated their own process to be able to keep up with the changing consumer and, to really deliver on customer centricity. So we are a great connector on our side to be able to help different parts of orgs that tend to be siloed to work around the one job of driving the one consumer to buy the one more thing. And that enables us to really drive new. We also look for what I call significant emotional events, where you're looking for a thing that everyone in an org really cares about to drive new process and new ways of working. So it could be a big brand launch, could be we're merging two companies, whatever that change is, you take advantage of it so that you can say, we can help you orchestrate this across around the objective of growth.
Is there an example? And if you can name the client, great. If not, no problem. Is there a direct example of a C put into action?
Yes, I can speak about one, which was our fantastic partnership with GSK. GSK we have just onboarded the media and the commerce media. And we also we're part of the shopper world as well. And we wanted to really kick off this new way of working to bring different teams together. And so when they wanted to bring Voltaren into the US and move it from prescription into OTC, it was a huge bet across the org. And it also was out of the regular OTC planning cycle in terms of how you talk to your customers. So we used that, and it was a big bet to be able to orchestrate new ways of working so that we were able to put the right process in place, whether it was using our Epsilon data to be able to find audiences, to be able to keep up with them moving off of script and being able to buy this awesome product in their favorite Kroger, for example. And that this was the opportunity in the moment for us to be able to say, we need a new way of working across so that we can assure that we're driving and capturing all of the growth here.
Fun. That's a great example. We'll be right back with this short message from our sponsor.
CitrusAd, the world's leading retail media platform, providing brands and agencies access to media representing over $200 billion in spending, including the likes of Target, GoPuff, and many more. Go to citrusad.com to learn more.
Welcome back. One of the things that you told me once was every product should be treated as its own small business.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So when you look at the list of SKUs or ASINs, every product is important to someone. It's someone's favorite. So how do we move out of the idea of selling the portfolio, which is important, but how do I, in a world where everyone talks about personalization at scale, I would much rather be able to look at every single product that I have. And I know that Adam is a huge fan of Oreo cookies. And I know that you love that. So how do I make that a winner for you always? And put around it the products required so that I can precision target you with what I know is your favorite. If I get really good at that, I can also figure out someone else that isn't a huge Oreo fan, but also equally likes Chips Ahoy's or whatever it is. I don't know why I'm talking about Mondelez products. That allows us to be able to get really smart at targeting our very specific at the SKU level to you so that you're always buying your favorite. That is a huge weapon for our brands. I mean, our brands are incredible at creating pack types that are designed for different usage occasions. So how do we get really smart at knowing what your things are and always selling you those versus you having to figure out, do I want all these different sizes or do I really not like these new variants? So it allows us to think about our SKUs in a one-to-one way. That's what I mean by small business.
Right. And I'm sure it's also then once you realize Adam buys these Oreos, how can we expand that across that brand? How do we introduce Adam to more small businesses?
That's right.
So the SKU in the brand.
That's right. So if I get it right and I find out that you're an Oreo lover and now I've recruited you into the Oreo franchise, if you will, there are many more things I can convince you probably that you love. That's a recruitment mechanism. And now I can move you from recruit to actually retain. And ideally, you become a super fan. And so now I can get really smart. I can even ask you about those next things you might want so that my product innovation pipeline is much stronger versus me sort of looking at massive trends or something that might, be directional, but this is a much better way for us to be able to constantly come up with those big bets that will win versus we're not sure they're going to win, but we're going to launch them.
This might be a great way to get Mondelez's business for Publicis.
I have to say, my first brand I worked on as a kid was Oreo. And I had the pleasure of working on site at Nabisco Craft as like a junior AE. And I sort of learned everything I needed to know in that. And so Oreo is one of my favorite brands.
Is there a particular type of Oreo, the OG Oreo?
I am just a plain, the plain blue bag girl. I'm not a double stuff girl. I have to say that one time there was a mistake on some creative that was presented and shipped to us, Imagine's shipped, and it was double stoof. So yes, which is like painful watching someone present that. So anyway, I'm not a double stoof fan, but I am just a, plain blue bag. What about you?
I have not had an Oreo in probably 5 years.
You should.
But Amy, I have a Mondelez story. A little over a decade ago, I started my first tech company. It was a sports scheduling app for recreational athletes. And we I'm sorry to go totally off track here,
Oh,
but
I love this because I'm knee deep in team sports right now for my little dude. So I want to hear
yeah,
more about it. Yes.
Your little dude might use a web portal to organize these games amongst the team, and we created mobile technology to enhance the experience, like calendar contacts, location, and like in-app. And I was at a pitch competition in New York, and I'm from Toronto, and I came down for the pitch competition, and winning it meant you got to pitch Mondelez about a co-branding opportunity. And Mondelez was going through this big, like, healthy, active, not just snack brands. And fun enough, I won the pitch. It was like a huge moment for me. I was like 10 months into this startup. I'm failing every single day. And I finally get this win. And we ended up pitching something to Mondelez of doing like this activation of you organize a bunch of games. We'll do it around the US, and you'll start to give away healthy snacks and like do like healthy snack drops. Ultimately, it didn't pan out. But I think I was 25-year-old founder of this company that ultimately did not end up being successful. It was like crowning in those small wins as a founder. That was one of them. But anyways, we don't work with Mondelez. I don't think Publicis works with Mondelez.
We do for some things globally, and for media for sure. We do not work with them for commerce media specifically in the US.
Got it.
Yeah.
And
we do some content for them. Yes.
What about product, Amy?
So product. So to your original question in terms of how do you treat each SKU as a small business, you cannot do that without having a strong handle on product. So when we think about our commerce offering, we think of it in terms of an interoperable solution that is a mixture of marketing services, of course, but has to be underpinned by product. So this has been a big investment for our team and our group to invest in commerce products so that we are able to really help our brands navigate and understand what's happening on the digital shelf and how we can use those insights not only to maximize how we're performing through paid and organic on marketplaces, but also glean for insights so that our creative is better. We can use those to make better briefs. For example, consumers tell you so much about, how they feel in ratings and reviews, which is an incredible place to mine for ways that we can be creating the right emotional connection or utility connection with our consumers. So we cannot do that without a product set, because we can't keep up with all the SKUs. We can't keep up with all of the changing consumers. This is also where, Epsilon is really important to us. First, we have products that are fit for commerce needs, but also very much in partnership with our identity solution. You need to be able to recruit. We talked about recruiting Oreo. You're going to buy an Oreo after this. I know it. We talked about recruiting in terms of how you recruit someone in, and you want to basically recruit them so that you can know them, and having an identity solution as well as, your ability to get smarter about all the things that Adam needs and what he likes and how I can find him, and, allow my ability to send brands to you so that those brands can grow over time with their most valuable consumer. You need products to be able to do that.
And identity is a really hot topic this year. What exactly is your identity product in a little bit more detail?
So our identity product is basically the Epsilon Core ID product. It's incredible. It's, we bought Epsilon 3 years ago, and it was our big bet in the identity space. I mean, it was 2 years ago, but recently, so that we are able to use this Core ID product as the underpinning for everything that we do. We definitely have a product mindset. So if we think about transformation, this is critical. So it has, in 250 million different consumers that are active in it, as well as an incredible amount of, attributes that you can use to mine for understanding, how you can find audiences in unique ways. I'm certainly not doing it any justice. It is highly ranked by Forrester in comparison to the competitive set. And it is an incredible asset to us, especially as we move into a cookieless world, or cookieless sometime soon, depending on when Google lets us do that kind of thing, whenever that happens.
And you made another big acquisition recently. That's right?
It is, yes.
Tell me more.
Sure. So we acquired CitrusAd, which we're really excited about. This was another big bet for us. We have a commerce practice for a reason, and the growth of retail media is incredibly important. Amazon is, of course, now already owning 10% of the digital media space. And Citrus is an incredible technology that enables retailers to be able to monetize their audience from an on-site perspective. So we have bought Citrus Ad to, again, add into our product suite so that we can, be pushing in the retail media space and also enable our ability to, again, help our brands, in this case, retailers, grow and find new revenue streams.
And for those that aren't super familiar with Citrus provides retail media infrastructure for traditional brick and mortar retailers that are now going through this transformation of, hey, everyone's purchasing online right now. We have all these shopper marketing dollars that these opportunities aren't being seized online. How can we begin to seize them and replicate the same things that someone like an Amazon, Walmart, or an Instacart, who are able to hire hundreds, and in some cases thousands of engineers to build an advertising product, to have our own advertising product. And I'm giving like a Citrus commercial right now. And we're a Citrus partner. It's been great working with the Citrus team, and the team's amazing. And Citrus has some amazing retailers globally. In the US, Target for sure. An exciting one is GoPuff. I think Citrus recently signed a few other really impressive ones in Europe recently. So yeah.
We're excited about it. I mean, for us, it's as we think about transforming our client's business, this isn't a partner similar to Epsilon that allows us to be able to help transform our client's business through the lens of product. So we're really excited to have them as part of our family.
And it's a huge differentiator as well for the group.
It is. It allows us to have a different perspective on both sides of it. If you're talking to the brand supplier community, as well as how we can, think about not only our retailers, but perhaps other industries that should be thinking about, Amazon has definitely changed the game in terms of what the future of data monetization looks like, and what, future of ad sales potentially could be, and how you can open that up for you if you have a strong audience. So that is something that applies to retail and beyond.
One of the things I've noticed, Amy, is I see some fun, exciting announcements of Publicis Commerce diving into innovative betas with core platforms. Most recently, I think I saw a TikTok commerce product that Publicis is diving in on. Earlier this year, I saw something around an Amazon OTT commerce product that Publicis was on an early beta for. I definitely want to talk about those two specifically, but I'd love to learn how Publicis thinks about their relationship with these core platforms, and how you're able to push the envelope and put the Publicis Commerce team in front of these opportunities and be able to seize them.
Yes. So, we have an amazing partnerships team that is very much focused on working with our partners so that we are creating our first best only type engagements, that we are pushing them on and co-creating with them. They're an important partner to us. And so as we think about our strategic conversations with them, we want to be able to push them, understand their product roadmap, and also push them on the things that we know we need in the market, and what are our bets, so that we have places for our brands to play that are unique to both ourselves as well as that partner in this case. And so what I have done is, worked with our fantastic partnerships team to assure that commerce, to your question earlier on process, is also part of those strategic pushes that we have in terms of a pillar that lives inside of our conversations with them, so that we are able to not only bring the brilliance we need in terms of driving media and experiences, but also what are those new opportunities that are somewhat unique, that are the marriage of experience and media, which is commerce. And so we've been able to really push our partners that also want to grow there as well to develop new unlocks and quite honestly inform what they might be making or thinking about making, so we know it's right for the market, and that this is what will help our brands grow.
And so the Amazon OTT one, do you think you can describe that?
Sure. So that one is an interesting one. I sort of touched on that earlier, which was that CPG example, where one of the things we were really trying to do is, and especially as Amazon is, of course, winning in search, but also wanting to be able to capture consumers across the funnel, particularly upper funnel. So in that case, we essentially said, okay, great. What we know consumers are there. I mean, streaming has exploded. So what are the products that we can work with you on that enable us to be able to move someone from seeing, a brand building ad to be able to add it to their digital cart? So that snack and stream example I gave you is that example where we wanted to be able to marry those two worlds together and play with it, but you have to create the right creative in order to leverage that appropriately. And, that was a great signal for us so that we could continue to play in that space. And of course, have our upfront deal with them this year, knowing how important they are as a partner to us. So that's one.
And to clarify on that one, I'm able to add to cart after seeing an OTT ad with Amazon via Alexa, via voice, or is it via the remote that I would have?
Via, I need to get back to you to make sure exactly on the mechanics of how it worked. But the notion is you are in the platform and you see an ad that's when you're streaming in a passive moment, and then you're able to add it to your cart. I'm not sure if it was voice enabled or if it was remote enabled, or it was that we wanted to just drive physically that you opened up the app to actually put it in your cart. But that's the intention from a behavior.
Got it. And you're going to mention the second one.
The second one in terms of TikTok?
Yes.
Okay. So TikTok, that's hot off the press. That was, I think, 2 days ago. It's been a long week. That was super exciting in terms of how we're thinking about TikTok and community commerce. Again, to your question earlier about, the rise of commerce inside of Publicis and why we've invested in. And again, community commerce is something, if you look at what's happening in China, is a huge, huge place to play. Where so many of our consumers are basically doing everything, social everything inside of certain mega ecosystems. So community commerce is, has exploded on TikTok. And so we wanted to be a partner with them. So we've created these community commerce sprint opportunities that our brands are able to participate in, so that we can construct what are the right places for our brands to play in TikTok in an organic way. I think organic is really important. And, what is involved there is, one, the opportunity for them to have a front seat with TikTok and assuring they're having the right creators, but also our ability to be able to help on the back end so that they have the right systems in place to be able to action on TikTok made me buy it. Oftentimes many of our CPG brands don't necessarily have the right back-end infrastructure. Many of them don't have their own channel experience yet. So there are some things that it sounds great and you want to be part of it, but if the experience isn't there, you're not going to drive the sales that you want. But this is the idea of the sprint, is to be able to have a collaborative way to work with TikTok and our brands to be able to capitalize on TikTok made me buy it. Have you ever bought anything because TikTok made you buy it?
That's a good question. Indirectly, probably. I have definitely sent many things to my wife. And at work, we actually have a TikTok channel in which we share. There's this very natural phenomenon on TikTok of the fun things on Amazon or the cool things on Amazon. And it's awesome when we sometimes see our clients that are highlighted in that. And it's really awesome. One of the things that we have also in our company is we track top search terms daily across the Amazon, US, UK, and Germany marketplaces. And so we'll see a search term that's in the top 5 just out of nowhere. And we'll be like, okay, why is this search term there? And I think there was one in particular where it was like foot fungus peel.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this viral product? Like a foot peel. And it was like, why is this in the top 5? And top 5 means this is a double-digit $1 million opportunity if you're in the top 5 on search frequency rank. And the answer is, it was a viral TikTok that just made it just absolutely explode. So I have not purchased anything, but I've definitely been affected by, or I have affected other people purchasing things from TikTok. And I think it's a really, really, really compelling channel. I think the most interesting thing that I found here, Amy, is that you brand it community commerce Why is that community commerce? Like many people, when they talk about TikTok, it's about creators. You talk about China. There's this very natural extension to like, what does a live streaming TikTok and purchasing product look like? But where does the element of community come in?
That is, to me, I look at it as this is how consumers behave on TikTok in terms of the community. You just sort of articulated it to me in terms of you bought this for your wife, you're talking about it in your group. There is this community aspect. And so TikTok really talks a lot about the intersection of commerce, creator, and community. And that's how they really position commerce for themselves. And to me, it makes sense. I mean, still the most important component of anything is word of mouth. Still, right?
Yep.
I might buy something that you tell me about, not because I saw TikTok. You might have heard about it on TikTok, but you're going to tell me. And that is still important. And I think when I think community on TikTok, I think of that inherent word of mouth that happens there, that the creator can inspire. It can make you buy it. But there is this community aspect when you're sending it around that brings that along, that feels organic and much more honorable to TikTok versus other platforms. Can I tell you my TikTok made me buy it story?
I would love to hear it, but it doesn't. I only want to hear Amy, not your 16-year-old daughter.
Well, it's actually she made me. Okay, my TikTok made me buy it is my thing of my daughter made me do it. So it was when the famous feta pasta recipe was trending. So she was like, "Mom, we're making it." So we made it, and it was fine. But what was interesting is the effect after. That to your point on search terms, feta was the number one search term on Instacart.
Yeah.
And the supply chain implications were incredible. It was out of stock in almost every food retailer for 30 days.
Just feta cheese.
Yeah, because no one is anticipating someone running out and buying blocks of feta cheese. I was on a call where we were talking about TikTok for a pitch that we were doing. And so I brought up this example. And one of the people on the call said, "Oh my gosh, I just sold the feta I had in my fridge to my neighbor."
Wow.
Because they can't get it at their store.
Wow.
So it's interesting to me in the world of commerce is around supply chain. And this to me is the most interesting outcome of the rise of community commerce or really just the how easy it is to buy everything, because many of our clients are not organized around this fast moving supply chain. So a question for you, when you were looking at top search terms, did you of course see chess games explode earlier this year?
Of course. Yes.
Right.
Queen's Gambit.
Of course. So if you're Hasbro or Mattel or whoever makes those, I am not sure they were ready for that. And so all of a sudden out of stocks ensue. And then how are you mining for that? And that's a whole new input we might look at through media like you know, from a cultural perspective, what's happening. But how are the organizations thinking about, wait a minute, what's happening? Now we have an out of stock problem and we're 9 months away from actually being able to refill when this trend is over, which is really interesting when you think about fast commerce and how you can capitalize on that always.
Are those problems that can be solved with people, process, and product?
Yes. I mean, you've already talked about in terms of like supply chain is an area that, you know, Sapient is of course part of our group. And this is a really important accelerator. We have accelerators under commerce. We have 6 of them we're very focused on. And for through the lens of Sapient, supply chain is a really important one so that we're stitching the systems together. That's a product. So that now how am I thinking about not only changing my media and marketing investment strategy, but also what am I using to signal, like you guys do, to any organization? We're seeing this, what's happening. We probably need to get smart about what this is. Is it going to continue? How do we change it, et cetera, or prepare for it from a supply chain perspective? Because most supply chains are designed to send things to huge brick and mortar stores.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it.
No, totally. It's a fun time. It's a fun, exciting time. Last question, and I've asked every guest this question. If you were to make one big prediction of what's to come in retail media, what would be your prediction in the next year?
In retail media, that retail is a word that changes. So commerce media, or the ability to be able to find consumers using purchase behavior or the strength of your understanding of them in all the places that they might be spending their time shopping. So I feel like the retail media world is expanding massively to anyone that has a really strong handle on their consumer that they own.
Yeah. And in the world of a cookieless future, one with first party data is incredibly at an advantage over one that does not have that.
Yes. And then, so that's like overall in terms of, that's more a media prediction.
Sure.
For retail media, the new game is experience. And the experience components are going to be what differentiates the ability for that a brand's going to choose to invest in retailer X versus retailer Y to a degree. Of course, there's always going to be those commercial aspects of the relationships. We know that this is important in terms of these retailers are critical to selling everyone's wares. So that's important. But at some point, we don't have enough money. If every retailer turns on a media network, everyone doesn't have enough money to support all of their new media asks. So what will be the differentiator is experience, and how that experience is better for my brand versus another retailer, and what that means. Because if I'm smart, if I'm really smart, I am able to tell Adam what he needs and wants through an experience brand. This gets into the brand building way that allows me to be able to have you add this item to your basket. And if it's not as great in each of the retail environments, I'm not going to invest. It's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy because the numbers aren't going to be there. But I think experiences really matter. I think there's major hires over the last couple of days for Instacart. Mm-hmm. Definitely more of an experience push if you think about that. And I think that's going to be the real competitive advantage for retail media.
I'm looking forward to it.
You're in a good spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're in a good spot too. Amy, thanks so much for coming by. Really, really appreciate it. This was awesome. Thanks, Amy.
Great. Thank you.
This is Growth Sessions. Please make sure to subscribe to listen to more episodes on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.